Evening everybody, welcome into your box seat, brought to you in association with Sweet Lou, standing at Woodlands, week 2 of the series, and Michael Guerin. Plenty of talk leading into the big open class race at Addington Friday night and a hell of a lot afterwards. Evening to you.
Hey brother, a big hi to everybody at home. Hope Wednesday was good for you. Strange old week, hasn't it been? Because we all got the love affair going for Heaven Rocks last week, and then all of a sudden became Hell Rocks at Addington. Cost us plenty of money, and Lazarus just kept on doing what Lazarus did. So it's had a huge impact, like a reversal impact on that New Zealand Cup market, Greg. But I suppose we need to go back before we go forwards to talk about what it all means.
So let's do that exactly. Go back to the Inkwise Canterbury Classic. Michael, as we know, going into this race, the last 10 years since it's been 2,600 metres, 8 of the 10 Cup winners have come out of it. Let's get Mark Mack to bring them home before hearing from the top 3 home.
It's father versus son here, Lazarus, and have faith in me. It's Lazarus making the lead, and he's back at his favourite stomping ground. Lazarus has won it and has beaten home. Have faith in me, dream about me. Seal the Deal has run 4th.
How dare we ever underestimate him again? He was outstanding, Mark.
He was, Greg. He's a champion, and you know, just the professional and stepped beautifully and had a great run, and you know, even a run short, he's just too good.
What are you thinking pathway now? Ashburton's clearly on the radar. Is that all he'll need, or do you think there's another run possible?
I'd like to give him 2 more runs, Greg, but subject maybe to what Addington does here on the 3rd, and Kaikoura's an option. So yeah, we'll play that game as it comes.
In your own mind, just how much of a percentage, if you like, if he was 90%, 92%, is that fair enough tonight? Do you think there's that much under the bonnet?
Yes, yeah, I think so, Greg. Yeah, and he's a stallion now, and he's taken a bit longer to come up. But tonight he was very good. So you know, I expect him to be better next time he steps out.
Nathan, he's gone fantastic.
He has, Greg. You know, he made a good beginning at the start, which was key, and then we used race fitness tonight to try and get around them, and it worked out pretty good.
Only Lazarus on your back could have beaten you really tonight, so with a view towards the Cup, that's a pretty positive step.
Yeah, for sure. You know, he's Lazarus speaks for himself really from last year, but no, he done great, this guy, and you know, he's putting his best foot forward to go to the Cup, and you know, fingers crossed that it all goes well.
Tim, with a view towards the Cup, that's another very good step.
Yeah, very much so. Very pleased, Greg, the way she found the line, and just lost that wee bit of ground when obviously Heaven Rock's coming back on us. It's not ideal when they're running those sectionals, but you know, the way she found the line last 100, really encouraging.
Let's put this in perspective, Michael. James Dean, outstanding drive by Leo O'Reilly later in the night, 3:13, 6.5 seconds quicker than what they went in the open class race. So how much do we take out of this?
Well, we take a few things out of it. First of all, Heaven Rocks is the big question mark. But let's get to the winner. Obviously, he's a great horse. Nothing proven there. I mean, I think the standard for an open class horse, that distance standing starts about 3:12, 3:13. So they're about 100 metres below standard, which is fine. Have Faith in Me was good. Lazarus, very professional. But the fact that Mark handed up proves his pre-race comments. The horse wasn't ready to beat Heaven Rocks in the Heaven Rocks trial version. It was ready to beat the rest of them. There's the standing start. Most of them pretty well behaved. So look, I thought Have Faith in Me drove relatively well for him. But there's Lazarus. He wouldn't have handed up, and he wouldn't have struggled to run past Have Faith in Me at his best. So he wasn't at his best, and he still won. That's why he's the horse to beat in the Cup. Have Faith in Me, good. Dream About Me, I thought really good. What did you make of her? I thought excellent.
Yeah, look, I really like her as a top 3 spot for the New Zealand Cup. She obviously needed another run. She was big in condition. She's in the field for Methven on Sunday, which is interesting. I just assume Mark's thinking, and Natalie, that another run will only bring her on further. And she's proven. We know what she did in the Auckland Cup.
Well, proof is a very interesting word you use here. I'm just with her potentially going to Methven. Obviously, she has little concerns with her hooves, and I think that a grass track 2 mile or 3,000 metres wouldn't do her any harm. We get down to proof and Heaven Rocks. Lazarus has proven he can handle a gut-busting, hard, painful New Zealand Cup. We know that. He won by 10 lengths last year. Dream About Me has proven to us she can do that. Even Have Faith in Me, who's an oddball, he's proven he can do it because he's won an Auckland Cup. Heaven Rocks still has that doubt in some people's mind, and nobody doubts his ability, I believe, that in a dog fight, when the pain kicks in, when things get tough. And I know he won an Easter Cup, but it wasn't a strong Easter Cup. He hasn't proven to me he's in for the dog fight. Now, if, and after the race we thought initially it might be a broken bone and all that sort of stuff, and it's turned out to be none of that. It's turned out to be greasy heel. If that's how he reacts to greasy heel, then his pain threshold isn't as high as some of the others. That's how I view it. That's not slagging the horse, because horses come in all different shapes and sizes. Good, bad, fast, slow, brave, not so brave. But do you really want to back a horse in the New Zealand Cup at 3.6 now, who's performed at that level and has shown that in the cauldron he's willing to melt?
No, that's the answer to that, and we've had exclusive coverage by able to go to the All-Stars yesterday, catch up with Natalie Rasmussen and Heaven Rocks, and show you that he hasn't missed any work leading towards his Cup campaign. Natalie, he was certainly the talk horse going into Friday night, and post the race, he even more so.
Oh yeah, he was just awful. Pulled up a little bit lame in front, but we've had everything x-rayed and it looks fine. So pressing on now, like everything seems really good.
Looking at his work today, clearly there's no problem with him. What'd you do today, and what sort of feeling did he give you?
Oh, look, he worked really good today. He was nice and kind. I just worked with Dream About Me, and the track, as you can see, was a mess. So just worked him 2 mile, just quietly, side by side. I've been trying to do that a little bit with him, just teach him to actually sit beside others and settle and not always want to race. He gave me a good feel. Like, I think he's in a good place. Just, you know, ride off the other night and press on.
All right, you had a little bit of an issue, greasy heel-wise, but it wasn't significant. But he is a bit of a sook, isn't he?
Oh, he's a real sook. Anything that he always overreacts to everything. One little bit of greasy heel cracked open, and it's like he'd broken a leg. So that's the sort of horse he is. He's a soft-skinned big guy. And look, hey, you just got to take him on trust. Like he is brilliant when he's brilliant, but he's awful when he's awful.
Natalie, you had the spreaders on him today. Is it your intention to have those on race day from now on?
I will do, Greg, yeah. Just when he seems to get up the track in the straights, he does brush that off knee, and once he does it once, he just gets worse and worse. That was the worst he's ever done it the other night. But I just think it'll just give him that bit of confidence that he, you know, won't brush it, and then hopefully just keep him nice and straight and balanced.
Pathway from here, potentially a trial before he goes to Ashburton?
Yeah, possibly. We're sort of looking, knowing a little bit about Methven, but just sort of brush that. Yeah, maybe trial next week and then go to Ashburton.
Yeah, so the keys to come out of that, Michael, were particularly the spreaders, that he'll be wearing them on race day. What you said, and you hadn't seen that interview before we played that then, about him being a bit of a sook. Anything upsets him. Natalie put a light rain pricker on the inside there, and I saw him afterwards, and it rubbed him up, like he's got really thin skin. Anything to upset him will upset this horse. She won't put hobble shorteners on him, because when she goes to pull them, he'll just lose his rag. So that's the type of horse you're dealing with here.
Well, and that's also the reason New Zealand Cup Day looms as something he could win. But when you consider how relatively bomb-proof Lazarus is, and to a degree Dream About Me with those slight hoof concerns, and then you're thinking about him, it's really hard to make a case to back him, because I think they know he's as talented as Lazarus, but do you trust him as much? Has he proven to you he can handle a dog fight?
I'll tell you what she said. First, second or last. That's what he'll run in the New Zealand Cup.
Yeah. And look at him here. He seems kind enough. Like he wants to be there, but when something goes wrong, he just throws his toys out the car.
I had a look at the greasy heel. I've been lucky enough to see, you know, the effects of it over the years and see how it can upset horses. It wasn't significant, but it was enough to put him off. And that's the mental frailty that he does have.
We also need to touch on another thing. Last week, Mark Purdon came out in the media on this show, in the New Zealand Herald and the ODT, Harness Racing New Zealand website, and said, look, I think Heaven Rocks will beat Lazarus. He also said, because let's clarify this, he said, don't worry, Lazarus is Lazarus, he can still win, but the way they're working, he's not up to his peak. I still believe that was 100% correct. And the proof is in the pudding. He wasn't nominated for this race, Lazarus. He was only put in the race to get it off the ground. So Mark doesn't bet. He comes out week in, week out and gives us his honest opinion. Sometimes he's going to be wrong. He is not to know that the mental frailties of Heaven Rocks will be exposed. Go back 9 days earlier and the trials would suggest that Heaven Rocks would have beaten Lazarus had he produced a similar form. So let's not get too carried away with, oh, wow,
the social media thing intrigues me. You know, there were a couple of people tweeted things out suggesting that he'd broken a bone. Now, I reckon I've got pretty good eyesight, but I can't see through a horse's flesh. And until those results have come out, via, getting the x-rays done. It's a very, very dangerous path to be going down.
I have this conversation with people all the time about social media. Social media is great in some ways. First of all, the problem is it's emotional, so people get emotional immediately. So after a race, punters slag people because they lost their money. Well, there's no room for emotion in media, full stop. Secondly, people want to be the first person to get something, and often that information is wrong. So if you're following social media, follow people who you trust to try and be right. And people are wrong all the time, but that's part of life. But just believing every second thing you hear on social media means you're open to, for want of a better word, fake news. And we're all going to get stuff wrong all the time. I get stuff wrong. You do. It's just life. But if you believe things on social media and take them as fact in a punting context, it's going to cost you money. So try and follow people, whether it's on Facebook or wherever, who have some clue, and give yourself some perspective on things.
Michael, the other thing that came out of that workout we went and had a look at yesterday was how difficult it is training horses in Canterbury at the moment, or anywhere in the country for that matter, weather-wise. Today the workout's abandoned again, Waikiki Beach, Piccadilly Princess, some really smart horses, Almac,
Imagine how the gallops
Spankin.
people feel. The poor galloping trainers try and get horses ready for Riccarton, and then meetings cancelled and half cancelled. And
Ashley Locas, the list goes on that we're going there today.
Exactly, and those horses need to get ready for a sire stakes. I feel for the galloping trainers more than the harness trainers, but it's still bloody hard. At least our meetings get off the ground. Talking about getting horses ready for big carnivals, Trotting Cup market. It's not an overreaction, but when you look at this market now, how could you possibly have a bet on Lazarus? Now, hands up, I've got one hand up, you can't see it. I got Lazarus's odds wrong last year. I thought he would start about 280 at this stage of the season. He got into $2 on the day because Have Faith in Me, who was the early favourite for the Cup last year, just dropped off. But in saying that, it's pretty hard to get this wrong. Surely he can't start shorter than $1.75 on the day. So when I look at this now, I don't want to have a bet on the win market. Heaven Rocks is just in a limbo, and yes, he can still win, and he probably hasn't changed much as a horse from last week, but I'm not taking 360 to find out. Have Faith in Me, maybe. Titan Banner, maybe. I think there's one bit of value in this, in the place market. Dream About Me is about 2.6. She's now my second pick in the Cup.
Yep, I agree. I think she's a great chance. We know her manners. Obviously, if she gets there nice and sound, there's no drama there, and we know her.
Well, she'll cop 2 miles.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
I thought she was the horse who came out of the race with some glory the other day.
Well, particularly knowing full well that she would have needed that run, and she found the line.
And she's off the front line. This is also a Cup where we're going to have Heaven Rocks and Have Faith in Me off the Unruly. There might only be 12 starters.
Yeah.
That means every other horse has to be off the front line. You can't be on the Unruly unless you're Unruly. You can't be on a second line. I don't think there'll be a second line on the Cup this year.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. What about the pathway to the great race? We've obviously got Methven this week. Let's have a look at.
It'd be good to see the Classy Brigade back this week because we need those, not second tier, but the horses who have...
Seal the Deal, who was second to Smolder last year. He was okay in that sprint home the other night,
Okay, so Methven this week, and obviously the Holmes DG named in honour of Kerry Hoggard this week at Alexandra Park. So that's a decent race. Couple of southern horses going there. Cash and Flow is going to be really interesting. I think Jack's Legend will improve. Then the Monday after, so 9 days after that, we head to Ashburton, which traditionally has been the biggest Cup trial.
Last year there was only 6 in it.
They might get 6 or 7 this year too.
Yeah.
Okay, Kaikoura's in play for Lazarus. Really interesting. Alexandra Park will drop in a race somewhere.
As will Addington on the third.
Addington's looking at the third.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Heaven Rocks went there. Because the Cup is later this year, it's a bigger gap. It's actually 3 weeks from Ashburton to New Zealand Cup. I think a lot of them will look for a run in between. Sneaky chance Lazarus might go to Kaikoura.
Yeah, there's a chance. Yeah. And wouldn't that be a huge boost for that? And obviously what happened last year, what it may do though is diminish who else goes there.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a Winks theory there now. Some people are going to say, look, I'm like Titan Banner, get the early wins in, try and avoid
Well, he's
these
in for
horses.
Methven, which I think is really interesting.
Well, again, he's trying to avoid Lazarus probably. And all the way along, that's going to be the smart way to pick up money. But if there's 12 in the Cup, they'll be surprised. I mean, sorry, I won't be surprised at 12. There's more than 12, I'll be surprised.
Let's have a look at the Kerry Hogarth Homes DG, and here is the field for you. Cash and Flow, as you mentioned, joining them in the north for this. No doctor needed. Just update us as to the status with the Victoria Cup for he and Better Be Amazed.
Okay, Victoria Cup's on this Saturday. We'll talk about it a bit later on, but Better Be Amazed was going to go, worked poorly on Friday, again on Sunday, blood test taken, she's pulled out of the race. No doctor needed was going as a companion for her. Steve Telfer, who's got a very good grasp on things, Steve. He's a very realistic trainer. He said, well, look, we're probably not going to get in. Decided to go to the Homes DG. Smart move. Lenny the Shark's drawn one in the Victoria Cup. Would have been a waste of time, to be honest. He's off 20 metres here. Jack's Legend will be the big improver, Greg. The question mark, and again, it comes down to Mark Purdon's impact on markets. If Mark Purdon comes out and says Cash and Flow's flying and's clearly better than the fixer, it starts $2.50. He comes out and says he's not ready, it starts $4.50. There's not a single person in this country, in either code, in any code, who has an impact on markets like Mark does. And we're lucky to have him telling us the truth. Sometimes he's going to get things wrong. He got that wrong last week. He wasn't to know Heaven Rocks was going to...
You've got a good article in The Informant this week, haven't you?
We're lucky to have this. Trainers in other parts of the world. Now, Chris Waller's great. Waller's fantastic. But I've dealt with trainers all over the world. In England, you went to Aidan O'Brien and asked him what the team's doing this week. Get off the property.
Yeah.
Don't even come here. They'll speak to the media on race day. Most of them won't speak to the media at all.
Yeah.
So we're lucky to have the access, not just Mark. He's no god, it's everybody else.
Yeah.
The trainers and drivers here are fantastic with the media, and there's nothing in it for them. So let's not get too carried away with somebody getting one wrong, because on the whole, you've done this for a long time now.
Yeah.
The access we get to Dexter and Blair and Barry Purdon and Tony Hurley and Ken Barron.
Across the board.
Everybody. Everybody.
It's
the
outstanding.
access is fantastic. So once in a while, you're going to get a bleeding nose out of it.
Let's have a look at the Homes DG and Jack's Legend in his first up run. He appeared here to me just to blow out, Michael. He would have derived plenty out of this, and therefore is a huge player this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll win this week, Greg, if he can beat Cash and Flow, who loves Alexandra
And the
Park.
Fixer. Fixer's a fair horse.
Yeah, I'm not sure about him around Alexandra Park yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think Cash and Flow might be the better chance. Jack's Legend, if he's going to be competitive in a New Zealand Cup as in a place-getting role, he's going to need to win or go very close to winning this week. Methven Cup's more interesting. We don't know the exact composition of the field yet, but big, 3,000 metres on a big track. Sounds perfect for Titan Banner, but if Dream About Me turns up there, then I'll go her to beat Titan Banner. Classy Brigade, you know more about than I do.
Look, the workouts were called off last week because the track was too wet and they've had significant rainfall up there. Weather forecast improving. If it's even a dead track, we're all Classy Brigade out of it, just does not cop that at all. Seal the Deal will be the horse to beat here. Has an amazing grass track record, second in the race last year behind Smolder.
So even Titan Banner and Dream About Me, he's the horse to beat for them?
Look, I still think he is because one, he's got 10 metres start in front of them, but two, he's such a competitive horse. Well, he's a competitive horse anywhere, but on the grass he's even more so. I think he'll be hard to beat, but Dream About Me, the way she went the other night, and watching her yesterday with Heaven Rocks, she'd improved even off that run. Here's the Methven Cup from last year. The mighty horse Smolder wins it, but Seal the Deal was very, very good. That's him in the middle of the track, and if he reproduces this, I think he'd be very hard to beat, Michael.
Yeah, he will. He's a great grass track horse, and look, I thought he wasn't disastrous last week, but it's hard to make a case he's going to beat Dream About Me. It comes down to odds. You know, he's going to tend to be $5 or $6 compared to her $2.50, which makes him backable each way. But you know what you get with him. He's pretty well behaved. At this stage, it's all these horses are in the mix. Classy Brigade comes in, and Buster Brady's still there, and they're all in the mix.
I can tell you about Buster Brady.
And it's good, but
I know the plan.
Yeah?
Kyle Austin said he needs to stand up. He really needs to front up. If in the next start, maybe two, he doesn't, then he'll go to the junior free-for-all, because this is a horse of a lifetime for Kyle, and I know, or Jock as he's better known, that he doesn't want to just be in the numbers. He turned out a lot of money for that horse earlier on in his career and decided to keep him because he's a once-in-a-lifetime horse. So, and that's his choice.
He's a horse who can win $250,000. There's a lot of money to be won placing horses away from New Zealand Cups. I mean,
well, particularly around Christmas.
Kaikoura Cups and down south, the Central Otago, all that sort of stuff. That's why I reckon those races in the deep south over Christmas and through January should be opened up to open class horses. I think last year they restricted them and had that band truncated a bit. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think the second tier open class horses can't afford to be giving away 30 and 40 metres. It's too tough.
All right, I totally agree with that. We're about to take a short break here on your box seat. Of course, brought to you in association with Sweet Lube. When we return, we'll have a chat about the Inter-Dominion. Yeah, a little bit unusual, isn't it? Victoria Cup, second week in October, but it's time to have a good
what's
look at.
unusual is it's the same day as the Everest and the Caulfield Guineas.
That's not ideal, was it?
Try getting media coverage for a race. The barrier draws were yesterday.
Yeah.
The Everest just swallows everything in its path. Caulfield's huge. I think this is an error. I don't think the race should be there. It is on, by the way. If you trackside 1 Saturday night, Victoria Cup. Been one lead-up race that matters. That was last week at Melton. Some doubts that Lenny the Shark was going to be ready. Tee-hee.
It went out the window, didn't it?
Drew barrier 7, went straight to the front.
151.9.
And he doesn't run away from them very often, Lenny, but he ran away from them here. He's just brained them. There's Field Marshall out wide for Ants and
He had a
Timmy.
flat tyre for the last 500 or 600 metres.
Yeah, did a super job running second, but like Lenny's just smashed him. Now, this is bad. If you go, okay, there's Lenny, see what they draw. Meh. He drew barrier 1 yesterday. Not as bad as it sounds because he's last 5 times he's drawn barrier 1. He's been beaten in 4 of them.
Yeah.
But one of them was in a Victoria Cup by Chris and me. Another time Inter-Dominion final behind Bow Tide. He wasn't right that day. He's drawn barrier 1 this week. Plenty of speed outside him. Tiger Tara, former New Zealanders there. Field Marshall's second line, Greg. I think he'll lead. I think he'll win. On that, impossible to go past him. He'll head back to the Inter-Dominions where Lazarus is going. This is really interesting because I think Lazarus is perfectly suited to the Inter-Dominions. Lenny the Shark, I'm not so sure. The old body, 4 runs in 2 weeks. The Great White Hope, who's brown, out of WA is a Chicago Bull, and they do love him, and he's a wonderful little horse, but I thought the bubble burst a bit last week. This is the JP Stratton last week at Gloucester Park. We'll put this up so you can have a look at it at home. Shandale wins it, and I find it hard to believe Shandale's a good open class horse. That's him in front, Shandale. Outside him, the Bull. And 3 wide Soho Tribeca, who was the run of the race. Shandale was very good.
Well, he led early, got crossed though, came back out and around, bit of pressure.
Really good. Soho Tribeca was the run of the race and clearly outpointed Chicago Bull. Now, a few of the Australians are telling me that Chicago Bull's better driven with a sit, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's a very hard way to win big races being driven with a sit. So, Chicago Bull, we go back to that word proof, has yet to prove to me.
Look, if he was still
could beat
here,
Lazarus
and the
Lenny
price
Shark.
is trained him here, you know, he was a good horse here. He'd still be struggling to get into open company if he was in New Zealand.
Yeah,
he might be on the verge.
And that doesn't bother me so much because horses like Jack Morris were nothing special here, and they become, and even on the Mighty Quinn, they become very special horses.
But what
in
I'm getting
WA.
at is he's Mini Quinny. They're talking about him over there. Well, hang on a minute. He won $4.3 million.
I agree. They're getting carried away too early.
Yeah.
Because the free-for-allers in Perth are just horses.
Yes.
So when you beat them 10 times, you're just the best version. You're the tallest of the 7 dwarfs is what you are. So look, I'm not convinced he can win an Inter-Dominion. I think he's too tight in the markers. I think Lazarus gets a great chance to win the Inter-Dom, Greg. And Lenny the Shark if he gets through the series. It's going to be an interesting Inter-Dominion. Just on the Inter-Dominion last week, we broke the news last week that it's coming back to New Zealand. Still no confirmation from Harness Racing Australia.
Right.
Nonsensical, absolutely nonsensical. It's all the relevant parties have told us this is the only bid. Interesting comments from John Dummersey from Harness Racing New South Wales. He said the 3 organisations, Harness Racing Victoria, Harness Racing New South Wales and Harness Racing New Zealand, have agreed they won't compete with each other on the stake. So it's guaranteed at 500,000 Australian, but they're not going to try and say, well, we'll get a bit more money in the kitty, we'll kick it up to 750. So it's guaranteed at that. But it's coming to the Eastern Seaboard unless Harness Racing Australia and the Inter-Dominion Council say, well, no, that's not enough money. In which case, Greg, there's no other,
okay, so
there's
it's not
other
enough
option.
money. There's no other money, so...
But the silence is deafening.
Yeah, isn't it? Right, another of the features on New Zealand Cup Day is, of course, the Sires Stakes final for the 3-year-olds. Heats underway. First of those out of Cambridge. You were working on the night. Cambridge, barrier 1, absolute gold when you got the speed like King of Swing's got.
Barrier 1 and barrier 2. Ray Green's got 2 in the final. Here's Aaron White.
100 to go. King of Swing, Rico Lover, South Beach Arden running on, solid gold. Mark Shard, Ultra Maestro is going to run last. King of Swing gets in over Rico Lover, and third across, it's very tight. South Beach.
So a terrific training performance. Of course, we know he won the Breeders' Crown. He's up over a couple of 100,000 now. He led. I thought Rico Lover halfway down was going to get close to him, but he kicked again like a good horse. Phil Butcher sitting in for David, who was away. 56 mile rate, which incidentally was exactly the same mile rate as Pat Slight did the next night.
Good to see Ray with 2 in the final. It opens things up a little bit. He's won a Sires Stakes final with Sir Lincoln, of course, and I think everybody likes Ray. He's just one of those very likeable people. Tell you what I didn't know, Ray's 71. He could pass for 58, I reckon, Ray. You know what?
If you're looking as good.
You know what it goes to prove, Gregory?
What's that?
Being happy is very important in life.
He's always happy.
He's a very happy man.
Win, lose or draw he is.
Yes, so anyway, so this horse is clearly a factor for the final, so is Rico Lover, and that's good. Now, the interesting horse out of the race, the Heaven Rocks moment, was Ultra Maestro. I thought he got outside the leader relatively easily, and I don't know, I thought he underperformed, and he's going to need to perform better in the next heat in a couple of weeks at Alexandra Park to be a threat in the final.
Is he definitely there, or is he going to Addington? I'm not totally sure about that, but maybe we can find out.
I don't know. I thought he would go to Alexandra Park because those other horses, even, the winner has to draw wider. King of Swing has to draw wider in that heat now. At least he can go around. That ridiculous rule when you used to win a heat and couldn't go around the second heat. Thank God that's gone. There'll be a nice bunch of horses in that northern heat, but at least this is a Sires Stakes that feels like it's open, whereas in the past, for much of the last 5 years it felt like Mark and that were going to turn up and win with whichever one they want to win with. So now that Addington heat, this was really interesting. At the start here, mate, we see a few going forward, but the horses going forward aren't the ones who get the job done later on. Really interested here. When the Devil's Own strolled, and he just strolled to the lead in the middle stages, I thought this was a race over job, but Gregory, down the back straight, it was not.
Yeah, exactly. Here he is, Aloka, coming off the gate like I thought he might, grabs the lead. Positive drive from Tim Williams at this point. He pops off and presses forward, and let's have a look where he takes the lead. Once he got there, he tried to get away with a 32-second quarter, which at this level meant that Dexter Dunn went, right, now it's time for me to get hiking. So here he is, front straight first time, presses the go button. Aloka probably needing at least one more run. Once he got here, what did you think?
Oh, I thought this was race over. Yep. If I'd never bet in the race, but if I took $1.90 here, I would have been thinking, well, beautiful, go put the jug on, come back in a minute and a half and this will be over and done with. What happens next is really interesting. I think he was sort of caught half napping, Tim. He probably wanted to not give the Devil's Own a really hard run because it was this fresh up run, but the bottom line is he's still $1.90 and he's a very good horse. Dexter's sitting in the 1-1, they're dorking around a little bit, which is fine. There's Dexter, there's the big hand.
So this is part of the quarter where he got the 32, so...
And then Dexter just launches, and he says, I'm taking the race by the scruff of the neck. Now, the horse outside the leader actually is in Tim's line of vision when Dexter launches. Just here you'll see it. So when Tim goes to turn around, he just can't quite see where Dexter is, but he gets him there. But here's the crucial part of the race, Greg. Here, Tim had the opportunity to push up inside Dexter. And he's a funny horse, the Devil's Own. He tapped him up a little bit, but he did. Had he wanted to hold him, he would have held him.
But once they hit the bend,
there's no doubt he would have held him had he wanted to.
And then at that speed, trying to make up 2 lengths, impossibility.
Now, you never know when you're sitting where we sit. So here's Pat Stillo, who's done a super job because Devil's Own had a clear shot at him again. You never know how they're travelling, how they feel in the bit and through the reins and that sort of thing. I think Tim made an error in judgment by not punching up inside him. But I don't know how the horse felt.
And he was first up.
That's a grandstand comment. Here it is here. I reckon here he had the chance to do that. In saying that, Tim's driven an Auckland Cup winner and I haven't. So I'm always reticent to criticise drivers, but I believe he made a mistake there. It's one of his first nights back at the office. Maybe his timing.
Okay, so if he made a mistake, Dexter's drive was still outstanding. Because who would have thought of pulling from the 1-1 at that stage of the race?
Of course it was.
How many drivers would do that?
Hey, this is a once-in-a-generation driver. And as I said, it's easy to sit here and slag Tim, but I don't know how the horse felt. He's half a dork, the horse, anyway. So
and he's made the final. He's finished second. That doesn't help the people that backed him at $1.90.
No,
course it's not. Of course
so, as I said, drivers, like presenters, like rugby players, like cricket players, like people who drive taxis, everybody makes mistakes.
Yep.
Errors of judgment, they happen in split seconds. I'm not going to get too carried away about it, but yeah, do I believe he erred? Yes, I do. Would he have still won? I probably think so. Can I prove that? Absolutely not.
No. Let's hear from Crandell Getty, though, because, yeah, he had a bit to say about the drive.
Need we be reminded just how talented Dexter Dunn is?
Oh, we can't tell him that, Greg. Yes, it was. It's just probably the talents of assessing the situation at a one given time. Whereas up front they were going very slow and Dex was worried about hitting the wheel when they were running their 25 last quarter. So a bullish drive and it worked.
Let's talk about Pat's Delight, though. He's got a good horse's record now.
Yes, well, coming up he's been nice, but we've been basically a little bit scared of the big fish, to be honest with you. And it was just an opportunity that Dex made him sort of be put in a winnable position, and that's how it unfolded.
What's your pathway now? Now he's qualified, of course, for the big dance the second Tuesday in November. Do you go to another heat? What are you sort of thinking?
Well, I think he's basically got to have another race, and the 20k races. So if there's one there, and actually we go in a wee bit of a cruise mode, we'll not be panicking because of obviously being qualified. But when the heats are worth 20k, we'll try and have another go.
He's a nice horse. He's still a bit green. He's still a bit to learn. So there's a bit to work on there.
Yes, he's just won typical bit of Delight. He's just got better and better. We haven't had him in the high hopes at the start, but just every time he's raced, he's gone 5 lengths better than I thought he would go.
And his record is 5 from 8. Interestingly, out of that race, of course, Chase Auckland came out in the morning and Fun at the Beach only 10 minutes before they went out onto the track. So here's what Natalie Rasmussen had to say about their team. Natalie, wasn't much of a night for you Friday night, having to scratch one right on race start time of the size, but Chase Auckland earlier in the day.
Yeah, that's right. He just got cast in the box and he just did give a fetlock a hell of a bang, and it was quite swollen, and a back leg on a splint. He's got a splint on one back leg anyway, and he gave it a hell of a bang. And he just, both of them were quite puffy and swollen. He was a bit scratchy and sore. We wouldn't risk him. We quite like him. So he's just getting ready now for the next size stake heat on the 20th.
But all things, you've had everything checked out, there's no problem there, and things will just carry on, and he hasn't missed any work at all. He
hasn't missed any work, Greg, no. He actually did jog that Friday morning just to see how sound he was, and we just weren't quite happy, so he really only just had the Saturday off. He hasn't missed any work since. He looks really good. The track's a bit of a mess to still, get a real guide on them, but he does seem to be jogging sound, and he seems well.
Which is great news, because he's an exciting horse. Of course, they're right on the verge of, or markers, creating
2,000
history.
New Zealand wins. It's a big deal, and when you consider,
only his dad and brother.
Well, he's trained that many winners in Australia too, and he spent that much time out of New Zealand. This size stakes is really intriguing. I'm not sure who's going to win it, and that's a good thing. There's a market open, but I think the market's nonsensical. But the reason being, you're only added to the market when you are in a heat. Well, Spankham hasn't been in a heat yet, and he's favourite for the series. So I understand what the TRB are trying to do, but you just find the top 33-year-olds.
Yeah, but surely you could just go to Kieran at the size stakes and say, who's paid up here? Yeah. Right, go, bang, they're in the market.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I understand what they're trying to do, but it's silly.
OK, let's move on to the Canterbury Park Trotting Cup, and a few were fresh up in this, most notably Bordeaux, Group 1 placed, as we know. He won this at the start. Here he comes. He steps away beautifully. Once he found the front, race over.
Yeah, it was, and I think a couple of these underperformed, but he's a very good horse. I mean, no Monbay, and obviously Monbay's back at the trials on Tuesday with no Monbay around. He's as good as the rest. Let's not forget Quite a Moment. I think she's been retired, so she's one of the better ones from last year. He was excellent in the big races last year. I think help is coming in the open class trotting ranks. There could be Shimon, Stent, Monbay back at the workouts in the next couple of weeks, but fit and firing, this very good looking horse is hard to get past.
He does a good job, Philip Biggo.
Sure does. Really interesting is talking the other day in your interview about how he trains on the straight tracks, which makes it tricky on the bends. Great things happen down the outside.
Massive.
It's very good. Destiny Jones is turning into a good horse. Prince Fearless is a thief.
he got a few.
A filthy thief.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know if he's just not trying or what it is with him.
Look, he might have had the virus, I don't know, but again, it's a little bit like Heaven Rocks without the ability.
He's got an interesting style, hasn't he?
He keeps getting beaten.
Yeah, but Bordeaux, he's a bit of a daisy clipping style, almost pacing style, very much like I did it my way a couple of years ago. So yeah,
pretty much. Look, he's a horse. He could win a Dominion handicap, no doubts. But I think the whole Dominion thing comes out to, is Monbay going to be there or not be there? Signs are positive this week. Fingers crossed, but if he didn't turn up on Bay, I wouldn't be stunned. If he turned up and won everything, it wouldn't be stunned.
All right, we're about to hear from one of the greats sitting in the sulky. He got to 2,000 wins, Colin De Philippi. We'll do that when we return, but as we go to a break, let's head across the Tasman. In case you missed this, Let It Ride across the Tasman with TG Butt, and this is what he did first up.
Let It Ride leads, kicks away, Nitro Nicky into the clear. Let It Ride in front from Nitro Nicky, Carl McGregor. B's coasting the New Zealander. Let It Ride, an impressive Australian debut. Wins comfortably 5 metres, Nitro Nicky. Our Shanghai Noon Stern.
Colin, September the 8th, 2017, you joined a pretty elusive club, the 2000 Win Club. Must have been a nice feeling.
Definitely was, Greg, yeah. Took a wee while the last couple, Greg, as you know. But looking at who's, you know, the other 5 that's in the club, it's a bit of an honour to be there.
When did you sort of start thinking about that? Did it rush up on you a little bit?
Yeah, no, I've never been great one on figures or numbers or goals. You know, your next race is always your main goal. Yeah, I really didn't have a clue where I was on figures until it got close.
Ismock, the horse's name, out of Balgallion, who we'll talk a little bit more about shortly, but win not only 2000 but 1999 as well, so yeah, quite appropriate.
Well, it made it a wee bit special, you know, the fact that we part own him and 2 good owners in with him, and yeah, and the family was all there, Greg, so it was good.
A rare salute, indicating to those who are watching that it did mean a fair bit.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's not something you set out to do. I suppose when I started off, if someone had said you're going to drive 1,000, I would have been wrapped. Probably 500, Greg would have been, you would have think you're going okay. So 2,000 is something you don't really have in your mind, you know.
Colin, has time gone quickly? First win was for your dad, Brother Eden at Greymouth. Do you remember that still vividly?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I was a wee bit late starting in the horses, Greg. My brother Michael was always going to be the horseman, and I think he got his junior licence at about 17 or 18. I think I was 22 when I got mine, and I only had my junior licence for a year and a half, and they took it off me because I took out a trainer's licence. So that made it a wee bit hard, Greg, but yeah, I know, I definitely remember the first win, yeah.
What about your first Group 1, a Northern Derby?
Yeah, I couldn't say it was a great drive. It was a great training feat from Alec Milne Senior. Definitely one of the better trainers I ever drove for. You know, they were fit, they were hard. Better super field that night, and I sat 3 wide for the last 1,200 metres. He just out-toughed him. You know, I couldn't get parked, and I wasn't going to go back. So it was special.
Armbro Wings are talking about, of course, and that was in 1980. It wasn't too long till you got a really good horse in your barn, though, and of course, correct me if I'm wrong, our Mana, his name, and he was the first horse to get the West Coast bonus.
Yeah, he just came along at a good time, Greg. You know, we'd met, we went on tour with Paul Davies and Colin Maynard to Tasmania for the Indominions. I know the horse who won it. I think he'd won 23 straight before he got beaten. And the next youngest, we was only young then, Julie and I, and the next youngest couple on the trip were Roger and Jenny Barron. And Roger said, "Oh, we got a horse, you know, would you have a go at it?" And he was coming 4, and he was a late 3-year-old and hadn't been anywhere, and by Shell Hanover, who wasn't really a popular sire. And I said, "Oh, I'll lease you something else, Rod," you know. No, he insisted that I have a go at him, so yeah, he just turned out to be a great horse for me, you know. Second in 2 New Zealand Cups, second in an Auckland Cup, and he just came along at the right time, Greg.
He won an Easter Cup.
Another Group 1 for you?
He won an Easter Cup. As you said, he won the West Coast bonus. It was funny, he'd been out in the paddock for 4 months when I got him. He was big and burly. I put him in the cart the second day there. I hobbled him every day, every second day for a week. And I talked to the previous trainer, the late Lester Tatterson, who was a very good trainer. And I remember saying to Lester, what was wrong with the Shell Hanover horse you had? Oh, typical Shell Hanover, he said, you know. Pace got up the side of the road and used to go rough on the track. And I thought, that's funny. So then I shot him after a week, put a set of shoes on him, and the first day I hobbled him, when he had the new shoes on, or when he had shoes on, he went rough. And I'm thinking, oh, what a waste of money that was, you know. And anyhow, I don't know what I'd done, whether I'd let his gear out or did something, but he just got better and better. And I think in 7 weeks to the day, he went to the workouts and won. And one of my staff was driving him, and he went across the line with his ears pricked, you know, and I thought, and he was starting to work good, you know. A week later he qualified, or 10 days later he qualified, and a week later he went and won a CO trial. So, you know, I knew then that he was a bit better than average.
You won yourself a few Breeders' Stakes at Addington. Quiet Touch won one in the mid-80s, and towards the end of the 80s, Dylan Dean, I think you got a New Zealand free-for-all. So the 80s period was a pretty good one for you.
Probably my best run, Greg, yeah. Never ever had a big team to drive for, but I had some nice horses, yeah.
Gypsy Winkle started off the 90s for you by winning an Oaks, and that year of 95 when you won not only a Rowe Cup with So Long Eden, but you won an Auckland Cup as well.
Yeah, 2 races you aim for, especially the Rowe Cup. I was brought up with trotters, and my father had trained a Rowe Cup winner, so it was good to win that.
And you had a part to play in that CR winning that, didn't you?
I did take him away to Auckland. Couldn't get there quick enough in those days, Greg. Used to fly up in the old Bristol, and a good group of good trainers used to be on the plane. Jack Spolensky, the late Derek Jones, Jack Carmichael, and they took me under their wing a wee bit, and I probably learnt more in those couple of years. I think I had 6 or 7 trips to Auckland with CR, and I probably learnt more listening to those fellas than anything, you know. So it was special times, and you don't realise at that stage that, you know, what winning a Rowe Cup means. But I did work the horse, and I did shoe him, so, and it'd be pretty rough too, I imagine. So.
Along came now the late Courage Under Fire too, and an amazing time in your life.
Yeah, I went over to Bruce's and trialled him, and Wayne Ross brought him down to Bruce's, and Bruce had a bit of luck buying horses off Wayne, Ginger Man, and one or two others that done a good job. And I got there, and he was tied up to the rail, and I remember saying, well, where's the rest of him, you know? He really was a pony, but he was muscly. He had a good back end on him, and he was, once you sat behind him, you forgot about his size. And I still think he's the best juvenile I've ever seen, Greg, in my time, in Australasia. You know, we've seen 1 or 2 since. It's probably put up performances like he has, but none that have ever gone 2 seasons doing what he done, you know.
The New Zealand Cup had eluded during the 80s. Tell me the mindset and the build-up towards Kim's Girl, because you started in the Cup the previous year, and you didn't have her all the way through her career, did you?
No, David Miller had it earlier on. I got a wee bit by fluke. I actually trialled her to buy her for the stable, and she won the trial. This was before she ever raced, and then the owners changed their mind about selling her, and which I, didn't blame them. But through it all, I got the drive. So, and she won her first start at Timaru as a 3-year-old. Never ever won a C1 race. Had a half a dozen runs in the C1 and couldn't win a C1, but she came out and won a C2 race, racing out of the class on show day. So, yeah, I got her later on in life and for different reasons. She was a wee bit unsound and we had a pool at the old place and she was just a lovely mare, lovely gaited and, you know, speed and you might have thought she wasn't tough enough to win a cup, but, you know, she was a lovely relaxed mare and everything just fell into place on the day, Greg.
At it again, Pickby pockets. Holmes DG's got to the lead. Holmes DG, Kim's Girl, home and hose through the centre. Holmes DG, Kim's Girl sprints. Kim's Girl the outside, home and hosed. Kim's Girl, home and hosed. You'll Star. What a finish, what a race. Kim's Girl wins the cup.
Third to Ulster in 2000, won the Hannon, third the Flying Stakes, but you went to Kaikoura and she was unplaced.
I think I sat 3 back on the fence and I never got a go, Greg, and I was quite happy. I was more than happy with the way she felt, and I thought 8 days out from the cup, not getting a run won't do any harm. So, yeah, Kaikoura was there for a run, but and it served its purpose. So, yeah, no, it just all helped her.
Yeah, you trialled the next week and history will tell us you went on and won the cup. How big a thrill was that for you and Julie, but you as a driver to win, being a Canterbury boy, the ultimate race?
Oh, for sure, yeah, it's everyone's aim, Greg, and you know, I'd run second 3 times in it before, and one of them I thought I had it won at a furlong peg, and...
That bloke May.
Oh, yeah.
Inky Little gotcha.
Yeah. He shouldn't have beaten us that day, but that was one of the best performances you'll ever see from a cup winner. He got knocked down at the quarter peg and it really should have put him out of a race. And I knew I had everything covered in front of me or beside me, and I thought, well, I'm home here, and he came down and got me in the last 2 strides. So, yeah, it was a race I was starting to think, well, I'm not going to win it, you know. So
but you got the business done and you did it with Julie, which made it even more special.
Made it special, yeah.
You're always looking for your next Group 1 horse, and along comes Stent. He took a wee while to get to Group 1 level, but that was always part of the plan.
Yes, Greg, he had 2 workouts as a 2-year-old, and Trevor said we better give him a trial, so we give him a trial, and I think he ran home at 57.8 or something stupid, you know, without pulling the ear plugs, without turning the stick, and I think we give him 1 start as a 2-year-old. But he was never a young horse. Like, he, you know, head-wise, he's never going to be a 2-year-old. And I didn't want to over-race him at 3, and he did win races at 3, but, you know, the long-term plan was always to look after him and let him develop.
He's won Group 1s both sides of the Tasman. Is the Rowe Cup the ultimate for him, though? Because there were plenty of question marks about him at the ultimate distance, but he proved most wrong that night.
Well, he beat a super horse in Master Labros, Greg, who was an out-and-out stayer, and, you know, admittedly I had the drop on him. And I think Mickey Guerin put the story around that he wasn't a real stayer. I think he'd backed him in the Dominion 2 years before, and I always said to Mickey I think it was my fault, not the horses, that he didn't go better in the Dominion. Yeah, I never questioned his ability to stay. So to win that race and to beat Master Lavros was special. But I think to win the Great 7 Star was even better. You know, it's nice to go over there and beat the Aussies, and yeah, I'd got beaten the year before. Yeah, it was just it was one of my most satisfying wins, I think.
He's had a few problems in the last 20-odd months, but he's close to getting back, and we're very much touching wood at this stage.
Oh, he's, yeah, it's a shame that, you know, I think he still had plenty of racing left in him when he did have an injury. And hopefully we'll get him back to the races, Greg, but, you know, as you know, this, you know, in that class, in that company, that you've got to be 100% to be racing, and the next month will really tell whether he's going to get to the races, but he is ready for the workouts here.
A couple of other driving highlights. Second to Peter Wolfenden in 1984 in the Premiership, but 22 years later, speaking of Master Lavros, an unreal battle with a young bloke called Mark Jones.
Yes, I didn't chase it the year I ran second to Peter, and you know, like he was just an out-and-out champion, Peter Wolfenden. when I was growing up, there was 2 drivers that just stood a head and shoulders above everyone else, was Maurice Holmes and Peter Wolfton. And, you know, I was training a team and I've always had to put my own team first. Looking back, I thought, you know, I should have just chased it more. Not saying I would have beaten him, but, you know, I could have got closer. So to finally win it, and it was a decent battle with Mark, you know. It was, I think we changed leads at least 3 or 4 times. And, you know, he's a previous world driving champion, so I bet his father, Peter, who was an outstanding driver, Peter, you know, wasted talent really. I bet him for the Maurice Holmes Trophy the only year I had a go at it. And to get up and beat Mark for the premiership was special. You know, Mark hit the headlines early on and really looked like he's going to dominate the driving for the next 10 or 20 years, you know. So.
As a result of that win in the premiership, of course, you got to represent the country in the World Drivers' Champs. That must have been another huge thrill.
Oh, for sure. You know, it's everyone's dream to represent your country. It was a good time. I got let down a wee bit in that, Greg. I run second and through a technicality, the Belgian fellow that beat us was a wee bit smart and he knew what was going on. He refused to drive one. And under the rules, he shouldn't have got any points, but he didn't. Well, he talked him out of the horse starting because he'd started early in the night. You know who trained it, and he talked him out of starting it, which meant he got, I think, 5 points for an average. But if they wanted to start and he refused to drive it, he wouldn't have got any points, which would have given me a wee bit of a show of beating him, Greg. So you know, looking back, I thought, what could have been, you know, but that's the game, isn't it?
What about the future, CJ?
I'm getting a bit older and I haven't got too big a team, which I'm not too worried about, and I'm not chasing the drives, and if you don't chase them, you don't get as many. So, but I'm still looking for another good horse.
You still love it, don't you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I enjoy the training and I love the driving. But you know, today you do need a good horse to be competitive. So I've got 3 or 4 young ones here, but I like to think something will come out of them.
Yeah, it was great to get that insight from CJ about his 2000 win. You got a mention as well.
It was nice, thank you, CJ. One of my favourite people in racing. He's a gentleman, he's a good guy. Him and his brother Mike are one of the reasons I got into the game when I was a kid on the West Coast. They were West Coasters as well. And he's been through a hell of a lot in his life. You know, nearly died himself. Obviously, they tragically lost their son, who, you know, everybody in the industry felt really badly. Julie's been a huge part of that. CJ and I would need to sit down for an awfully long time and drink an awful lot of beer before he convinced me that Stent was as good a stayer as he was a sprinter. But he won that argument Road Cup night for that one. So hey, the bottom line is one of the good guys joins the 2000 club.
Yeah, and he's still got plenty of big wins in him, I think. What about where we can bet this week? Of course, a busy old week as well. Addington Raceway will be there on Thursday night. $25,000 pick six, first underway there at 9 minutes past 5. Then from there we head to your stomping ground, and it is the $20,000 Kerry Hogarden Memorial, the Holmes DG, 2 greats of our game.
Yep, next on the road to the Cup, obviously. Then Methven's going to be cool, but in between we go to, was it Gore this week?
That's correct.
Gore.
11 races there.
Off the Gore.
Yep.
And then we go to Methven. Hope it stays dry there for you, brother. You going to Methven?
I'll be there. Looking forward to it.
Good job.
It's always a good day. Not only the Cup, the Group 3 Terror to Love, but also a Bibdi Ivy goes round in that mare's trotting race. 50 metres behind over 2,400 metres. That'll take some doing.
That will take some doing. Hey, we had bets of the week last week, and because,
here we go.
Because I'm a champion, I won. Last year I had a really bad run with these things, but I reckon we should stop now.
Really?
Or the other option is, since you was lost, we can play like match play golf, and basically I'm 1-0 up.
Okay.
And at
1-0.
the end,
and it paid $260. Good price.
Well, it's not a big
Italian.
price. It's better than nothing. Look, I'll take whatever I can get.
What was the name of the horse? I forget. My boy George.
Master George.
Master George.
Boy George or something.
I couldn't remember its name. I don't
Culture
really
Club.
care.
Your one got
it's
beat.
1-0.
What do you like this week?
For that. I'm going to get a run on the board this week with Star Commander, who comes out of the side stakes.
That's called the Early Crow.
Yeah.
Italian Delight raced in the same field last week at Cambridge and sat parked and won.
Yeah.
And therefore, I can't see a reason he won't do the same thing at Alexandra Park this week. But I could be wrong.
All right. Well, I'm definitely going to get a run on the board. That'll do me.
I was going to go Lenny the Shark in the Victoria Cup.
That would.
By the way, the rules are if we both get a winner, the higher price gets the run on the board.
Oh, will you make the rules now?
Yes,
do you?
exactly, I do.
Well, you are the brand after all.
guess what
Speaking of brands, thank you for branding me with one of your silly little
like that?
rosette things. Is that what they're called?
Guess what I'm doing on
They're
Friday?
not silly,
Guess what I'm doing on Friday? I'm guest hosting the first call with Aidan Rodley and Jason Tarn. It'll be nice to work with some professionals, I can tell you.
Oh, well.
Yes.
With that,
I
we'll
can
leave
tell
you
you.
on the box seat tonight. Looking forward to, of course, all of the action over the weekend. Good luck on the punt, and we'll catch you in 7 days' time.
Or 2 days for me.